series developed to replace the Freya Project's in-person events during the pandemic. The Freya Project will be featuring conversations between members of our community and people doing essential work that you need to know about. My name is Chanice Hughes-Greenberg, and I'm joined today by Oriaku Njoku, co-founder and co-director of Access Reproductive Care Southeast. ARC Southeast helps Southerners and their families navigate the pathways to access safe, compassionate, and affordable reproductive care by providing financial and logistical support and building power in our communities through advocacy, education, and leadership development. So, Oriaku, can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your work?
Of course, thank you, Chanice. So my name is Oriaku Njoku. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm co-founder and co-director of Access Reproductive Care Southeast, also known as ARC Southeast. And so a little bit about me and more about our work. I'll go to the more about our work part. Yeah, so about our work, we're a reproductive justice organization based in Atlanta, Georgia, and we work in 6 different states in the Southeast. So we work in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Tennessee. And we have this vision of the world where all Southerners will have full access to support around their reproductive health decisions without biases or barriers. So through funding and logistical support, we do all sorts of work to ensure that folks receive safe and compassionate healthcare or reproductive healthcare, which includes abortion services. We're an abortion fund that's part of the National Network of Abortion Funds as well. So we're lucky to be part of this really beautiful community all over the country, working so hard to fund abortion and build power at the same time. At ARC Southeast, we do believe that through education and leadership development, we are going to be more than able to build power, especially in communities of color. And to do that work to abolish stigma and to restore dignity and justice for folks trying to access reproductive care. Yeah, so we have one of the great things about our team. We have a team of 9 people right now. There are 5 people on our health line that's open from Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Whenever we have enough funding. And then we are around, then we have what, 2 other staff members, sorry. 2 other staff members who work in the admin and program side. And then I have a wonderful co-director, Quita Tinsley-Peterson, who we work together to collaborate and co-create beautiful things for ARC Southeast as well. We also have an awesome board and over 120 practical support volunteers that provide that logistical support. So rides, lodging, childcare, doula services, like whatever folks need, they're able to show up for folks in so many different ways. Sometimes it even looks like ordering Uber Eats for someone, you know, like there's just a multiple ways that people can show up. And we have awesome interns that have come through, whether it's during the summer or right now we have 2 amazing interns that started in the fall that asked to like be on with us for the spring as well. So we're excited for their continued leadership development as we grow. But we're based in Atlanta, and we try to keep track of everything that's going on in our 6 states, but the bulk of our work is definitely funding abortion and making sure that folks' material conditions are being met before they're even able to like join us to be part of our base. So, because we know that there's just a lot for callers who call out and reach out to us. There's more than just making the assumption that they're already part of our base because they've reached out to us for a direct service. So our ethos is like, well, what else do we need to do to show up for Southerners in a more meaningful way to eventually get them to a place where they feel empowered, have the full political education that they need to speak up and speak out against all sorts of reproductive oppression that impacts us every single day. So that's a little Cliff Notes version of the work that we do at ARC Southeast.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting, really important. So a personal question, how did you become interested in working in reproductive care?
OMG. So I learned about reproductive justice when I was unemployed in in 2012, randomly at some dinner, and someone who ended up being one of our co-founders, Bianca Campbell, was like, "So, you want to come join this training that's going on for reproductive justice?" And I was like, "What is reproductive justice? Like being a feminist? Like, sure, sign me up. I don't even know, what this means, but I'm down." And that was in 2013. And so I ended up being part of like some leadership programs with CLIP, which is the Civil Liberties Public Policy organization that was on Hampshire College or at Hampshire College. And so really being involved with them first off. And then after that conference, I was like, wow, I really want to do something in reproductive health rights or justice. Like I was just so moved by that initial meeting that in January of 2014, I was doing some job search while I was working at a massage place as a lifestyle consultant, which is a cute word for a secretary or administrative, like front desk person. Um, so in my head, I was like, I talk to rich white women every day coming to get these massages. Like, surely I can work in an abortion clinic in Buckhead, Atlanta, which, if y'all know anything about Buckhead, is just a really fancy kind of area. Y'all know what Buckhead is if you know. So, so then my first day working in the clinic, I was like, just like floored because there was literally no white people who came to the clinic with the exception of our clinic administrator. And that was absolutely not what I was expecting. And so within the first like 3 months and working as a phone advocate and then working as a financial advocate as well, someone who would help with the funding piece of things. I was hearing lots of things about people missing their appointments because their friend or family or boyfriend or partner was just like, yeah, I changed my mind, or I don't believe in abortion, or they couldn't find anyone to watch their kids, or we talked to them when they were 8 weeks and then talked to them again when they were 16 weeks, and we're like, oh, what happened, is everything okay? And they're like, I was just trying to raise some money so I can get to the appointment, not realizing that once you turn 13 weeks, every week after that the appointment goes up. And so I was talking to the other co-founders who were all working at Atlanta Women's Center, and I was like, y'all, we have to do something to show up for these folks in a more meaningful way, because the way that it stands, like, it just makes no sense. We're seeing people come from all over the South, even outside of the 6-state region that we worked in, traveling all the way to Atlanta to get abortion care. And I was like, this is ridiculous. We have to do something. Like, not only funding abortion, but figure out ways to like just truly show up for people when they're trying to access reproductive care. So that's how I got started. It was just an idea over lots of delicious Indian food at the Indian buffet here, Cafe Bombay. And then we were like, let's do it. We approached the National Network of Abortion Funds about this, and the thing wasn't like, we want to be an abortion fund, what can we do? We're like, we're going to be an abortion fund. So are there any resources that you all may have to like support, or is there any like words of wisdom that you have? And they're like, let's meet. So we met up with them. We got our 501c3 in 2015. And then I became the executive director on January 1st of 2016, and just celebrated 5 years doing this work with ARC Southeast. So yeah,
Congratulations.
that's the story of how I got into it. But I feel like my RJ story goes beyond that, because reproductive justice has been the movement where I feel like I can fully bring my whole self as a Black, queer, Nigerian American, fat, Southern femme. Like, I can bring all those pieces of me to this work and do it in an authentic way. So when I really, really think about it, I was like, this journey started a long time ago. I just didn't find a movement or a home where I felt like I can bring all of me to it. And that's what RJ has done.
Wonderful. Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I know this is something that is well known, but I'm just talking about a little bit the challenges to reproductive care in the South, and the challenges that people face trying to get abortion, trying to get to their appointments. It's devastating, and it's really upsetting that the region has been affected that way. And I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have this shirt on that says Roe versus everybody. And one of the things I like to say is like Roe v. Wade made abortion legal in 1973, but it did not make it accessible. And so folks in the South, folks in the Midwest have been living this post-Roe reality that a lot of folks are afraid of. That's actually been our lived experience for decades. And so when thinking about the challenges that come through the work or come in like doing the work, I mean, some of it just, there's a range, there's a huge range of challenges. One being like logistically, how are folks getting to their appointments? So when you think of someone who can get to point A to point B from their car that they have, but in a small town in Alabama, but they don't have, their vehicle will not make it across state lines to get abortion care. That is like an idea of logistical challenge that comes up. Um, Supporting young people and figuring out how folks under the age of 18 can still get abortions on their terms no matter what, because they are also autonomous beings who can self-determine what's best for them as well. There are things like the funding piece where, there may not be an abortion fund in a certain state. And so it's relying on other abortion funds across the country to pitch in to see if there's anything else that they can do. These are some of the challenges that folks don't think about, but some of the ones that come like that are just like often is like, crisis pregnancy centers and their intentionally deceptive tactics towards preventing people from accessing care. And a crisis pregnancy center is like one of those centers where folks can go to under the guise of like, let's help you, you're pregnant, we could give you a free ultrasound. And they end up getting an ultrasound from someone who's not a medically trained professional, who ends up like giving them this sob story, keeping them in clinic or in their facility when they're trying to just go get an abortion. So there's a wide range of stories around that I won't like get into, but that is also a challenge when folks have gone and reached out to someone thinking, yes, I'm actually going to get some support and get some help, and they were deceived during the process. There's also, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the targeted regulation of abortion providers. And so they'll do things like, you can't have grass that's this high, which grass has nothing to do with you being able to access abortion care.
Yeah.
They'll say you can't have, oh, sorry, oh no, that's like a real thing, like for real, for real. So they'll make up laws like that. From that to you have to be an ambulatory surgical center, when some places are like, surgery is not required in that same way. It's like a vacuum aspiration procedure, so it's different. So people, whatever like regulations, including like in 2019 when those sweeping abortion bans went all throughout the South, those are challenges that we have to face. And so there's like challenges for personal challenges versus challenges that come from like anti-choice, legislators as well. Of course, there's like worries about the Supreme Court and all of those things, but organizationally, how we've come over some of those things is like, at one point we had one person on the helpline. Now we have 5. So, doing what we need to increase our capacity to be able to provide support on multiple levels for people has been a challenge, but it's been awesome at the same time. So.
How has the pandemic changed your work or ARC's Southeast outreach?
Oh my goodness. Whew, that was like a rude awakening, but also ended up being this catalyst for some really beautiful things to happen. So, what it has done, how it's changed our work is, we went from working in the office and just having such a beautiful rapport with each other to all working from home and working remotely. So, that transition from having that like face-to-face interaction and like community building in person, to being at home and doing things virtually was an adjustment, for sure. And the things that we did to change that was like every morning, it's like one of my favorite things, but every morning from like 9:45 to 10, we have this check-in with each other that goes from icebreakers to meditation and grounding, and everyone chooses and facilitates. At first, it was just like me leading the meeting, and someone was like, what if we open it up to other people? And just even creating that environment where folks, regardless of if you're a part-time associate or your full-time, feels comfortable to even name that as a need is something that is so fantastic. Um, Outside of working remotely, we had to pause our practical support that we were providing because we had to figure out how to do it in a safe way. So we suspended rides, in-home housing, because volunteers would open up their homes to allow people to stay with them, and change that to buying people Ubers, buying people hotel rooms, which ended up being a little bit more expensive than what it had been in the past when all of this was like essentially volunteer, and in-kind, contributions from our volunteers. So that was a big shift as well. Um, it also challenged us to figure out how we do programming different, how we do outreach. Normally, we call it festival season that starts like late summer and goes through the fall, where we go to different pride festivals, neighborhood festivals, all of these things. And, most times people are like, what is this? Is this like Planned Parenthood? And we're like, well, we're part of the same ecosystem, but here's how we're different and here's how we support folks in community. So being able to unapologetically talk about abortion in community with folks is something that shifted. And so really trying to figure out how do we still engage callers, and how do we still engage and potential callers, and how do we engage folks who are in our larger community as well. And so two things that we did was, we shifted it was supposed to be like a caller engagement program, but really it turned into still a way to engage callers. But for folks who have any like questions about accessing reproductive care, what that looks like, frequently asked questions. We had lots of talks with other abortion funds and other organizations on our So Now What program, which is on Instagram. And so that's been really cool, like talking to folks, and bringing in guests from other organizations to talk about and things that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, opening it up virtually. And the other program that we do is RJATL, which is Reproductive Justice Ask, Talk, Listen. And through that program, that one is really focused on like the political education around the intersections between abortion access and other movements. And so we've had, one during Pride Month that was like abortion access and LGBTQ liberation. We did one on abortion access and prison abolition. We've done one with midwives. Next week, on January 28th, so next Thursday, we're doing one with Yamani Hernandez, who's the executive director of the National Network of Abortion Funds, to talk about visioning for reproductive justice beyond Roe. So, we've been trying to do things to engage folks all over, with this new programming, and have been like, okay, this, what's important to us is we want to make sure that folks have multiple entries for how they can join our movement and how they can join us, on their own pace. And so, whenever we are able to meet again outside, I always say when outside opens back up, but when we're able to be in community and be back outside, um, the hope is to continue offering, um, having like a virtual component for our programming in addition to in person, to, because we know that folks live in communities outside of Atlanta. We're doing so much to get outside of that like Atlanta mindset, which is just like in this perimeter of places in the city, to expanding access to, our programming to folks in all the other 6 states or 5 states that we work in as well. So um, those are some things, that we've had to do, but I think all of it is like this willingness to, this willingness to not like fall into like the status quo and not act as if business as usual, because it is not. We've seen the harm of the status quo, and we want to dream differently about how we can win and how we can, be that like safe and brave space for people to talk about abortion. Um, so yeah, that's what we've been working on over the last like little bit.
That's great. And have you seen that being able to pivot to virtual or do events that way, that you are like broadening your audience, getting like new I don't want to say followers, but reaching people that you haven't been able to reach before.
Absolutely. And another example that I thought of is like our first virtual practical support volunteer training. We did that in November, and we have another one that's coming on February 2nd. And so the amazing thing about that is folks who even lived outside of Metro Atlanta. I believe there was someone from South Carolina as well who was able to join this training, which normally we've been focusing the trainings a lot in Metro Atlanta and have done a couple out of state, but this was an opportunity for folks like whether you live in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, or Tennessee to actually join a training to be able to support folks in their state, or if they need to be that person where their car is not working or a caller's car is not working, being able and willing to cross state lines to provide abortion care for folks. So it really has broadened and widened our volunteer base as well. So it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. So thinking about the challenges that we just talked about and how the pandemic has interrupted and changed your work, what have you been doing to get through this period personally and professionally? And what are some things that would be able to provide some relief?
Chanice, this is a little question, but it's such a good one. Personally, um, I've been doing a lot of healing and spending a lot of time with myself. Um, in the first month or so of the pandemic, it was actually Easter Sunday. And I told my sister to come in or come over so I could make us this dinner because we weren't able to travel to go back home for Easter. And so as I was in the grocery store, I was like, I'm the only living thing in my apartment. My dog wasn't with me. He was in Kentucky during the holidays, and I had planned on going to pick him up. And so I bought a plant. I've never been a plant mama. And, girlfriend is still alive. So that's, so I'm like, we're winning. So outside of the getting a plant, doing like that healing is like, how do I create moments to pause? How do I create moments to get grounded? And realizing that, in order for me to be my best and authentic self, I need to make sure that my mind and body and spirit and my heart are in alignment with one another, because that's when my best work comes. That's when I feel rejuvenated. That's where I feel like I'm coming from this place of abundance and not feeling depleted. Um, Professionally, same thing goes. That's the exact same thing that I've been doing. Even challenging other colleagues to be like, is this necessary? Like, we've
Yeah.
been on 8,972 Zooms this week. So is this is this necessary, or is this something that could be an email? Can we like make the best use of the time that we have together, because there are just several meetings that come back to back. So doing that, making sure that my team is okay, consistently checking in on them as well. We provide a self-care stipend every quarter for folks. And so increasing the self-care stipend for people as well, because we know that the direct service we provide is community care, but in order to care for community, we have to care for ourselves. And so making sure that the folks doing the frontline direct service sort of care actually feel fully supported in doing the work is something else that we've been doing professionally. I also started training to be a healing centered coach. with my co-director as well. And so that's something that, we just want to figure out how to lead differently, how to be in this world, this movement differently. And so coming from, we're rooted in reproductive justice, but we have like this healing justice lens as well, because caring for our community and caring for ourselves is like what we have to do, you know? And it's an act of political, I'm trying to quote Audre Lorde, but I'm messing up the thing. But when she says it's self-preservation, that's exactly what it is. Like,
Self-preservation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're trying to do that as well. As far as funding for folks, we actually have been fundraising consistently to try to get as much funds as we can to support our callers who need help. So, we increased our monthly budget to $60,000 a month, which barely makes a dent in the amount of funding that is actually required to do this work. So consistently trying to fundraise and, encourage donors in this hard time, to try to think of our callers as well and see what we can do to support them. So that's been like a challenge as well, is like trying to fundraise while we know that folks are in a pandemic. Everyone is experiencing the same thing. So really just setting realistic expectations, not only for other people, but for ourselves too. So
Understood. Yeah. We're all going through it in various ways. So we are speaking today on Inauguration Day, a historic and important moment. What are you optimistic about for the future?
Whew.
Right? Like everything? No.
Like, I'm always an optimist. I'm like, we can do it. But just understanding, like, yes, we have a progressive administration. It's a historic moment. The first Black and Asian American woman to be vice president. Like, all of those things are firsts. Um, in addition to just a shift in this, like, oh, I don't even fully have words to describe what the last 4 years are like, but I'm optimistic about the hope that, we can instill some sort of like relief um, for the future, for like what the emotional and physical toll it's had on so many of us, especially in Black and Brown communities. It's been a tough 4 years. I'm optimistic about, what abortion access may look like, but not only abortion access, but like what racial justice will look like, and bringing about equity and getting us closer to a place where people can feel liberated, I'm not sure if that can necessarily be done with this administration, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this will get us closer. Towards getting to that place of like justice where people can feel like they can dream big and hope for more. People will have a living wage and be able to provide for themselves and their families. We have access to health care. We have access to better abortion care. I mean, it's like so many possibilities. Just making sure that we're in this space where we can, I don't think that you can hold people accountable, but being along this like accountability journey with our elected officials to be like, we put you in office for a reason. We put you in office to make sure that you have our best interests in heart. And even outside of like the federal government, I mean, on multiple levels, whether that's state, local, I'm hoping that there's a bit of a shift that happens in the next 4 years and beyond, to be quite honest. So
I love what you said about accountability. Like,
yeah.
very, very much so. We have some really great ideas that are circulating, some really great policies, and it really is just like, okay, now we need to, put the fight where where we need it to be. So
Yeah.
important. So very much sounds like you are politically active and engaged, and would just love to talk about, what the election season was like for you, and then especially since you're based in Atlanta, the following Senate runoff campaigns. What's it been like to see Georgia go blue?
I mean, this was one of those things where I was like, because we're so focused on abortion work, it was like, how can we support the other folks actually doing civic engagement work? Like, what are ways that we can show up? And so, folks were involved in multiple different things, whether it's like helping with policies locally, or talking about federal policies and what medication abortion looks like. There was just like a range of things that were happening that was like meeting at all the intersections where we work. So that was some of what was happening leading up to the election. Um, I know it was one of those things where, I knew that they weren't going to finish counting until later. So folks would be like, how are you holding up? I'm like, fam, I'm holding up. I'm baking, I'm rage baking, I'm making it happen. Like, I cannot be stressed right now. It's just gonna happen. So and as soon as we got the results, I made we've gone blueberry muffins. So that was like a fun thing to do. But that's a way that we've been staying like politically. It got ugly a little bit. There were some of these ads where like I'm just trying to go on YouTube and I'm like, I literally just want to watch this YouTube video. I don't need to hear about like what this person may or may not actually didn't do, but you're just like fluffing this up in this moment. And then when the Senate races came, that's when it got like the runoff. It was lit. I know people were getting mailers. I think my saving grace is that I live in an apartment and they can't just like send mailers like that. But ooh, the mailers that people were just like collecting them. They're like, yep, I got 4 today. Yep, I got 3. It was just wild. It was wild. And leading up to the runoff, there was one day that I was driving home from a friend's house and looked over, and actually I was like, let me take this shortcut through downtown. Didn't realize that there was like what count all the votes, like anti or like pro-Trump sort of rally that was going on. And I was like, oh heavens.
Yeah.
This I think that was the first time that I actually was like slightly scared. I've been doing a great job of staying at home, but seeing like the anger and the just like the emotion around this, I was like, I need to go home. I need to go back home. So there were some moments that were a little bit scary, but I knew the runoff was going to go, I knew that was going to be a continuation of turning blue. And that's really exciting to see what is possible with the new senators and and the new folks who got voted into Congress. Like, I'm really excited to see what happens on the federal level. In addition to the local level, because I know there's lots of stuff going on. Our session just started. So, we're always keeping an eye on like what kind of anti-choice legislation is about to pop up, because it's popping up all across our region, as well as figuring out how we can be proactive in introducing some like proactive pro-choice legislation. So that is some work that we've been doing in collaboration with some of our other partners, not only on the state level, but in the municipal level too. So doing things like trying to get a citywide abortion fund in the city of Atlanta. We recently have the first reproductive justice commission in the United States in the city of Atlanta as well. And so, trying to start from the city and then expand throughout the state for like pro-choice, laws and policies and things like that, that are not just pro-choice, but have a reproductive lens that's guiding that sort of legislation. So, yeah.
Right. You touched on my next question a little bit, but it's what are you working on for 2021? What are the next steps for 2021?
I feel like there's so much. One of the things is we want to finally expand to one of the states that we work in. So we'll be hiring a Healthline coordinator and a programs coordinator in the state of Mississippi. So that's the plan that we have to expand the team that's doing, this work. We also have been doing some really beautiful research with the Emory Rise program, and we'll be releasing a paper at some point this spring, fingers crossed, talking about, it's like an analysis of our demographic data from 2017 through 2019. With also plans to do an assessment on 2020 and the impact of COVID-19. And various other events, you know, talking about the uprisings and things and seeing like what is the impact of like different political moments as well as different sorts of legislation. What is the impact of those things on people being able to access care? So looking forward to doing some of that research. And from there, building like an ARC Southeast specific policy agenda. One of the things that we notice is when folks create policy agendas, we're always asking like, who is this for and who created it, you know? Um, and so making sure that whatever policy agenda that we have is guided and co-created with the people who we work with, which is our callers, which is our volunteers, you know, really being like, using the data to help determine like what is part of our policy agenda and how and where we do our targeted outreach. Um, Outside of that, hopefully doing some new hires to help create some of the programming that we do as well that's outside of the direct service piece, because we really do envision ARC Southeast being a political home for folks in the Southeast who want to do work focused on abortion access. So that is, I mean, I feel like that's a lot, but you know, in addition to like making sure we still fund abortions, like, and hopefully increasing our budget to fund abortions as well, because there've been lots of changes in the funding environment. So wanting to make sure that we're still connecting with folks to be like, you know, even though there are those changes, the need is still there. You know, even though we have a new administration, the need is still there. So you know, just trying to reiterate that and like drill that messaging down. So, you know, we continue to get support for doing the work that we do. But yeah, that's what we have planned for 2021. And then
Yeah,
going to our next round of strategic planning towards the end of the year as well. So
great. It's gonna be a busy year.
I mean,
Like you said, we've got work to do. So
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. So much work, but you know, I'm excited. I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Like doing this work as a Black woman in the South, you know, working with a team of all people of color doing abortion access work in the South. It ain't easy, you know, like it ain't easy. It's never been easy. Like it is not a cakewalk over here, but you know, we are so determined to continue doing this work with joy and pleasure, and finding those moments that, I mean, those are the moments that really help to continue to drive our work. We do find joy in that resistance, joy in being able to be like, yeah, there are really crappy laws in your city and we're trying to work on that. But what we're going to do is absolutely fund this abortion and make sure that you can get there no matter what. So, you know, there is joy in resistance for us as well.
very much so. Well, thank you. I've got one last question.
Oh,
What is the first thing that you want to do or first place you want to travel when the pandemic is over?
oh my God.
No comments.
I feel like there's so many, oh my God. I want to be by somebody's water, but
Me too.
not just any like, you know, water. I like some blue, clear water that's whether it's like in the Caribbean, whether it's in Mexico, whether I end up becoming like winning the lottery and becoming independently wealthy and traveling to Bali. Like, I don't know what is in store, but I need to be on somebody's beach. Um, that's the plan. But really, it would be dope to do some kind of cool like road trip or food tour, something like that would be a lot of fun. Um, yeah, or maybe taking a baking class in Paris, like that would be cool too. So, yeah, lots of things. I had this list of ongoing, like maybe I could do this, maybe I should do this, but yeah,
There'll be lots of opportunities. The
yeah,
choice will be endless. So,
I hope so.
well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. And thank you for joining us for Freya Project Talks. We'll provide links with information about Oriaku and ARC Southeast, and hope you'll join us for the next conversation. Yay.
Thank you so much, Chanice.